The ocean, a living world of giants, strange minds, ancient travelers, hidden cities, polar kingdoms, and darkness deeper than imagination. The ocean is not just a container of water surrounding continents. It is one of the most complete living systems on Earth, layered from sunlight to darkness, from drifting microscopic life to animals larger than any creature that has ever walked on land. To look at the sea only from the shore is to misunderstand it. The surface tells almost nothing about the depth of intelligence, struggle, invention and memory moving below. At the top, light shapes everything. Phytoplankton bloom, schools of fish flash silver, whales rise to breathe, and dolphins cut through blue water with effortless speed. Far below, light fades, then disappears. Bodies change. Eyes grow or shrink. Flesh becomes translucent. Hunger reorganizes anatomy. Deeper still, even sunlight stops being the foundation of life. Chemistry rising from Earth itself becomes the engine of survival. That range is what gives the ocean its true scale. It is not only wide, it is vertically immense, ecologically layered, and governed by more than one set of biological rules. This is why the sea feels like another world living beside our own. It has music, migration, cities, hunters, gardeners, scavengers, and ghosts of ancient lineages still alive in modern water. Some animals carry the memory of the Cretaceous inside their blood. Others solve problems with minds arranged in ways human beings did not expect. Others survive where pressure can crush steel and darkness erases the idea of day. The ocean is therefore not a simple environment. It is a total world, and every section of it carries a different expression of what life can become when evolution is given time, danger, and room. Among the rulers of the sea, few animals reveal strategic intelligence as clearly as the orca. It is not only a predator, it is an organizer of force. Moving at speeds of up to 56 kilometers per hour, orcas transform hunting into choreography. They do not merely overpower prey. They study weakness, coordinate roles, and use learned methods passed through social groups like inherited military doctrine. That is why they have often been described as wolves of the sea. But even that comparison feels too small. Their power lies not only in aggression, but in shared intelligence. One of the most striking examples is their ability to attack great white sharks by exploiting tonic immobility, a biological shutdown that occurs when the shark is rolled upside down. An orca does not need to destroy the whole body if it understands the butter's hidden switch. A precise strike, a controlled inversion, and the supposed terror of the sea becomes motionless. Then comes the most chilling detail of all, the selective feeding on the liver, the richest and most energy-dense organ. This is not random violence. It is targeted efficiency, and it reveals how far orca predation has moved beyond brute force. That strategic dominance also depends on social life. Orcas hunt as families and cultures, not as isolated machines. Different groups can specialize in different prey, use different techniques, and maintain distinctive vocal behaviors. In them, the ocean shows one of its most unsettling lessons. The most dangerous body is often the one joined to memory, coordination, and teaching. Orcas stand at the top not simply because they are strong, but because they can turn knowledge into power. If the orca represents organized force, the blue whale represents biological scale at its absolute limit. Everything about it seems to exceed proportion. Its heart can weigh around 600 kilograms and approach the size of a luxury car. In a single beat, it can push roughly 220 litres of blood through arteries so wide that they invite metaphor because ordinary comparison fails. Its tongue carries the mass of an adult elephant. Even its internal organs seem to belong to another category of life. But the blue whale is more than a giant body. It is one of the clearest examples of how immensity can still serve the system around it. Through what scientists describe as the whale pump, blue whales move nutrients such as iron and nitrogen through the water column when they dive deep and return toward the surface. That movement helps feed phytoplankton, the microscopic foundation of marine food webs, and a major contributor to global oxygen production. In that sense, a blue whale is not only a consumer of the ocean, it is also a gardener of planetary chemistry. Its voice deepens the sense of scale even further. Calls around 188 decibels can travel across huge marine distances, reportedly reaching beyond 1,600 kilometers under favorable conditions. The blue whale is therefore both monument and messenger. It carries mass beyond terrestrial imagination and at the same time sends sound across an empire of water too large for any single eye to hold. To speak of blue whales is to speak about the ocean's capacity to sustain greatness, while quietly linking that greatness back to microscopic life and planetary breath. The humpback whale reveals another side of oceanic grandeur, expression. Its songs can last around 20 minutes, unfolding in long, patterned sequences that give the sea an acoustic architecture beyond anything visible on the surface. The ocean is not silent. It is scored, and humpbacks are among its most haunting composers. Their music is not decoration. It is part of the reproductive and social life of a giant animal moving through distances so large that sound becomes the thread holding lives together. That is why the story of the so-called 52 Hz whale strikes with such force. In a world where most large whales communicate in lower frequency ranges, the repeated detection of a solitary call around 52 Hz created the image of a singer whose voice no one could answer. Whether every detail of that loneliness can be known or not, the emotional truth remains powerful. The ocean is vast enough to contain not only giant choirs, but the possibility of unheard voices. Placed beside one another, humpbacks and the 52 Hz whale deepen the documentary beyond natural spectacle. They turn the sea into an emotional landscape. Songs become signs of connection, identity, and search. Silence becomes more than absence. It becomes the shadow of missed recognition. Through whales, the ocean stops being only a physical environment. It becomes a place where distance shapes feeling, and where even the greatest bodies can still be measured by whether their call returns answered or alone. Dolphins embody one of the ocean's most recognizable forms of intelligence, but their importance goes beyond cleverness. Echolocation allows them to interpret the world with astonishing precision, effectively seeing through sound. A dolphin can read contours hidden by sand and turbidity, constructing a living map from returning echoes. In dark or murky water, this is not just a useful trick. It is another mode of perception altogether. Yet what makes dolphins especially compelling is that their intelligence is joined to social and emotional depth. Spindle cells in the brain, similar to those associated with complex emotional processing in humans and other highly social mammals, point toward capacities that make acts of empathy more than sentimental projection. Accounts of dolphins helping injured humans or guiding distressed whales back towards safer water do not feel entirely out of place, because the animal's biology already suggests a creature built not only for coordination, but for response to others. Dolphins also show how intelligence can remain deeply social without needing size or terror to matter. They cooperate, name, learn, and improvise. Their power lies in relationship. In the ocean, that is a lesson as significant as predation. Not all mastery is domination. Some forms of mastery are based on perception, communication, and trust inside a group. Dolphins remind us that the sea is filled not only with bodies adapted for hunger, but with minds adapted for one another. The octopus represents a radically different answer to the problem of intelligence. Where dolphins concentrate cognition in a highly social brain, the octopus disperses much of its power through the body. Around 500 million neurons belong to its nervous system, but as much as 2/3 of them are associated with the arms rather than centralized entirely in the head. That means each arm participates in sensing, deciding, and reacting with a degree of local independence almost impossible to imagine through a mammalian model. This makes the octopus feel less like an animal driven by a command center and more like a coordinated federation of moving minds. It can explore, manipulate, open containers, navigate confinement, and improvise escapes with a style that feels both alien and uncannily deliberate. Its intelligence is practical, tactile, and immediate. It thinks through contact. Then there is camouflage. Chromatophores and other skin structures allow rapid changes in color, contrast, and texture. The octopus does not merely hide behind its environment. It can become the environment, dissolving its own outline into sand, coral, stone, or shadow. Combined with venom, a strong beak, and ambush behavior that makes it one of the most versatile survivalists in the sea. If dolphins teach us about social intelligence, octopuses teach us about adaptive intelligence, the kind that survives by changing faster than the world can recognize it. Sea turtles carry time inside them. Their lineage reaches back more than 110 million years into a world of dinosaurs and ancient seas. To watch a sea turtle move through modern water is to watch a library that never closed. They are survivors not because life has been gentle to them, but because they have endured through immense planetary change. Their navigational ability is among the most astonishing in the ocean. Using an internal magnetic sense, often described as a biological compass, sea turtles can travel more than 8,000 kilometers and return to the very regions where they began life. That return is not simply movement. It is memory embodied as migration. It makes the ocean feel less like open space and more like a map written into living tissue. And yet survival remains brutally difficult. Only about 1 in 1,000 hatchlings may reach adulthood. That statistic changes the emotional weight of every return journey. Each adult turtle is the outcome of overwhelming odds. But turtles matter for more than endurance. Green turtles maintain seagrass meadows through selective grazing, helping those habitats function as carbon sinks far more efficient than tropical forests in some comparisons, up to 35 times more effective. They also influence the balance between reefs and competing organisms such as sponges. The turtle is therefore both witness to ancient time and worker in the present health of the sea. Coral reefs are among the most concentrated expressions of life in the ocean. Though they cover only around 1% of the seafloor, they shelter roughly 25% of marine species. That disparity alone explains why reefs deserve to be described as cities. Density, interaction, architecture, and ecological specialization all exist there at extraordinary levels. The builders of these cities are coral polyps, tiny animals whose long accumulation of calcium carbonate structures creates habitat on a monumental scale. Their alliance with zooxanthellae algae is one of the most important partnerships in the sea. In exchange for shelter and chemical conditions, the algae provide energy through photosynthesis. The brilliance of a healthy reef is therefore partly the visible result of intimate biological cooperation. Inside that city, every layer has function. Reef fish graze, hunt, clean, hide, reproduce, and compete in space more crowded than many forests. Shelter is everything. Complexity is everything. Remove enough structure and the city begins to fail. The reef is not just a beautiful place where animals happen to gather. It is infrastructure for marine life, one of the great constructed habitats on Earth, and one of the clearest demonstrations that tiny organisms, acting together over time, can build worlds. Among the most famous reef alliances is the relationship between clownfish and sea anemones. On the surface, it looks almost playful, bright fish darting through waving venomous tentacles. But what appears charming is actually one of the ocean's most elegant treaties. A specialized mucus coat protects the clownfish from the stinging cells of the anemone. In return, the clownfish defends the anemone from certain predators, contributes nutrients through waste, and increases local oxygenation through movement. This is symbiosis not as a vague concept, but as daily negotiated advantage. The reef depends on such arrangements. One organism provides fortress, another provides defense and circulation. Each becomes more survivable because the other exists. This is a form of politics in the sea, an exchange of roles, risks, and rewards. The social life of clownfish deepens the story further. They are protandrous hermaphrodites, meaning males can become female under the right social circumstances. If the dominant female dies, the leading male can change sex and take her place. This is not biological excess. It is continuity management. In a dangerous world, reproduction cannot afford disorder for long. Reef life therefore solves problems with flexibility, and flexibility often looks stranger than human expectation would guess. Cleaner shrimp and cleaner fish reveal another side of reef society: maintenance. At cleaning stations, larger fish and even sharks allow tiny specialists to remove parasites and dead tissue from vulnerable areas such as skin, mouths, and gills. For a short time, violence is suspended. Predator and potential prey enter a zone where mutual benefit overrides immediate appetite. These stations matter because health is ecological before it is individual. Every parasite removed, every wound cleaned, every burden reduced helps preserve the larger rhythm of the reef. The smallest workers can therefore carry effects far beyond their size. The city of the reef needs janitors as much as hunters. Parrotfish add a different kind of labour. With beak-like teeth, they scrape algae from coral and dead reef surfaces, helping prevent overgrowth that would smother living coral. In the process, they grind hard material and release sand, contributing literally to the building of tropical beaches. When people admire white shores in reef regions, they are often seeing the long, slow work of fish transformed into landscape. Even beauty on land can be the byproduct of labour below the surface. Below the bright upper waters lies the twilight zone, beginning around 200 metres and extending to roughly 1,000. This is where sunlight weakens into a dim blue uncertainty. It is also the stage for one of the largest movements of life on Earth, the nightly vertical migration. Billions of tons of organisms rise toward the surface under cover of darkness to feed, then descend again before dawn. This migration is so vast that it functions like an invisible pulse through the ocean. Energy is carried upward and downward every day, linking deep water to the productive surface. It is one of the sea's great hidden systems, critical to carbon transfer, food web dynamics, and predator-prey encounters. The twilight zone feels transitional in every way. It is not fully lit, not fully dark, not surface, not abyss. Bodies here often look intermediate too, adapted for upward journeys, downward escapes, or both. The documentary should treat this zone as a borderland, a place where ordinary daylight biology gives way to stranger rules without disappearing all at once. It is the sea between familiarity and alienness. In darkness, light becomes a weapon, a disguise, a lure, and a language. Bioluminescence is one of the most extraordinary answers evolution has produced to life beyond the reach of the sun. A velvet-belly lantern shark can use light on its underside to match faint illumination from above, erasing its silhouette from predators or prey below. The Atolla jelly can explode into rings of ghostly neon as a form of alarm and distraction, turning attack into spectacle. This is not decorative beauty. It is communication under pressure. A glow can say, "Do not touch me. Look over there. Come closer, or you cannot see me." The sea in darkness therefore still speaks, but in flashes rather than colour. Every pulse is information. For documentary storytelling, bioluminescence gives the abyss its own aesthetic grammar. The dark ocean is not empty blackness. It is punctuated with coded light. Once that is understood, darkness itself changes character. It becomes occupied, intelligent, and alive with signals invisible to those who remain at the surface. Beyond 4,000 meters lies the abyssal world, where pressure can reach 500 times that of the surface. In such a place, steel itself seems temporary. Human intuition, built for land and air, breaks quickly here. Yet the abyss is not dead. Around hydrothermal vents where fluids can exceed 400 degrees Celsius, life flourishes through chemosynthesis. Earth's heat becomes nourishment. Yeti crabs, giant tube worms, and entire microbial communities gather around these vents, demonstrating that life can organize itself around chemical gradients rather than sunlight. The existence of such ecosystems changes the meaning of habitability. A place that looks lethal to us can become home to a thriving system if energy is available in another form. The abyss also confronts the viewer with scale in another way. Down here, the ocean feels less like water and more like planetary interior made habitable at the margins. It is close to geology, close to heat, close to pressure, and far from everything familiar. The ocean's deepest truth may be that it keeps expanding the definition of where life is possible. Far from hydrothermal vents, deep-sea life often depends on a falling subsidy from above, known as marine snow. Bits of dead plankton, fecal pellets, mucus, fragments of tissue and other organic debris drift downward through the water column like a slow biological weather. To creatures on the sea floor, these particles can mean survival. Marine snow matters because it connects worlds that never see each other. Surface productivity becomes deep-sea rescue. A bloom in sunlit water may end as nourishment in darkness weeks later. This is one of the ocean's most profound continuities. Even where sunlight never reaches, the legacy of light still falls. The image of marine snow also changes how we think about abundance. In shallow water, food can feel immediate and visible. In the deep, life often survives on patience. It waits for whatever the upper ocean releases. Hunger becomes structural. The abyss is sustained not by plenty, but by what slowly descends. At the opposite thermal extreme, the Arctic shows that cold can be as demanding as pressure. Polar bears dominate this frozen margin through patience more than speed, waiting by seal breathing holes in temperatures near -40 degrees Celsius. Here, hunting becomes endurance. The body must withstand cold, hunger and stillness at once. Beluga whales reveal another face of Arctic adaptation. Their white bodies move beneath ice while they communicate with whistles and calls that have earned them the name canaries of the sea. In a world where visibility is often compromised by ice and darkness, sound becomes social structure. The Arctic section should remind the viewer that the ocean is not one place. It contains multiple kingdoms of survival. Heat, depth, light, cold, chemistry. Each region rewrites what it means to live. Arctic life survives not because conditions are gentle, but because evolution has learned how to turn severity into habitat. Narwhals deepen that Arctic strangeness. Their long tusk, reaching around 3 meters, is not merely an ornament or weapon. It is a modified tooth threaded with millions of nerve endings, capable of detecting changes in salinity, pressure, and temperature. The narwhal therefore carries a sensory instrument on its face, making the animal seem almost designed from myth and measurement at once. Climate change introduces a new and unsettling layer to this story. As ice patterns shift, species that once met less often can encounter each other more regularly. The rare hybrid, sometimes described as a narluga, a cross between beluga and narwhal, becomes a symbol of how environmental instability can reach all the way into the boundaries between species. That matters because the Arctic is not simply warming in a generic sense. It is restructuring contact, migration, and possibility. Evolutionary stories that once ran in parallel may begin to intersect. The ocean once again proves that when habitat changes, biology changes with it. The sea is also home to creatures that feel like experiments in possibility. Nudibranchs, with their intense colours and exposed elegance, look like living jewels, but many use those colours as warnings of toxicity. Some absorb chemical defences from the prey they consume and turn stolen weapons into their own protection. They are small but conceptually enormous. They show that survival can involve taking the chemistry of another life and making it part of oneself. Elephant seals push in another direction, combining massive bulk, up to 4 tons, with extraordinary diving ability, reaching beyond 1,500 meters and holding their breath for more than an hour. The ocean produces bodies of very different genius. The ocean sunfish, or mola mola, carries yet another impossible statistic: up to 300 million eggs in a single spawning event. Manta rays combine large brains with cephalic fins, able to guide plankton-rich water toward the mouth. Seahorses reverse expected reproductive roles, with males carrying developing young in a pouch. Kelp forests, growing by as much as 30 centimeters per day, become underwater woodlands that absorb carbon and protect coastlines. Taken together, these organisms make one point unmistakable: the ocean does not settle for one design. It continually invents. For all its magnificence, the ocean is under pressure from human action at a scale that no natural rhythm can easily absorb. Around 11 million tons of plastic enter the sea every year, and without decisive change, that number could triple by 2040. More than half of sea turtles have already ingested plastic after mistaking it for jellyfish. In a system built on feeding decisions, this is catastrophic. Waste becomes bait. Convenience becomes suffocation. Deep-sea mining adds a different kind of threat. Hydrothermal vent ecosystems, among the most ancient and biologically revealing communities on Earth, could be damaged or destroyed before science even understands them properly. The ocean is not only being polluted at the surface, it is being pursued downward into some of its least disturbed realms. This section should shift the emotional tone from wonder to alarm without becoming hollow. The point is not simply that the ocean is in trouble. The point is that human action now reaches almost every layer of the system, from turtles at the surface to ecosystems around deep vents. The sea is large, but not beyond injury. And yet the story is not without hope. Humpback whale populations off Brazil have shown strong recovery, reaching more than 27,000 individuals by 2025. That matters because it proves that protection, when sustained, can allow a giant species to return from the edge. The ocean does not only record damage, it can also record repair. Policy goals matter too. By 2026, the world is still trying to secure protection for at least 10% of the ocean on the way toward 30% by 2030. Whether those targets are met is not a technical detail. It is a measure of seriousness. Protected water means time, refuge, reduced extraction, and the possibility that breeding populations can rebuild. This is where the documentary must become morally clear. Protecting the ocean is not a decorative environmental gesture. It is an ethical obligation to a world that makes life on Earth possible, from oxygen production to climate regulation to the survival of ancient lineages and future generations. The sea cannot speak our language, but it is already speaking in decline and recovery. The question is whether human beings will answer with policy, restraint, and care. By the end of this journey, one truth stands above all the rest. The ocean is not a backdrop to life on Earth. It is one of its central engines, one of its greatest archives, and one of its most astonishing creations. It holds giant strategists and giant singers, distributed minds and migratory memory, cities built by coral, light made by flesh, heat-fed life in abyssal darkness, and frozen kingdoms where survival still writes new rules. To damage such a world is not merely to lose beauty. It is to diminish the range of life's imagination on this planet. The ocean shows us how far evolution can go, how many different forms intelligence can take, and how deeply interdependence runs beneath the surface. That is why the final feeling of the documentary should not be simple sadness or awe, but responsibility. The sea is old, vast and resilient, but not invulnerable. It has carried life through extinctions and climate shifts before. Yet what we are doing now is arriving too fast in too many places at once. The greatest tragedy would not be that the ocean is too mysterious to fully know. It would be that we learned enough to understand its importance and still fail to protect it. Not every beautiful organism belongs safely to the place where we admire it. Reef life teaches that colour can indicate harmony, warning, or invasion. Butterfly fish are often treated as biological indicators because their abundance and behaviour reflect the health of coral systems. Angelfish add another layer of ornamental brilliance, turning reefs into places where beauty itself seems to evolve as a language. But beauty can also arrive as disruption. Lionfish, with their long venomous spines and theatrical appearance, are among the clearest examples. In their native range, they belong to an established balance. In the Caribbean, however, where natural predators are limited and ecological checks are weaker, lionfish have become a dangerous invasive force. Their beauty becomes ecological pressure. Their elegance hides appetite. This matters because the ocean cannot be read through appearance alone. The same visual richness that attracts human admiration can conceal imbalance. A healthy reef is not defined by colour by itself, but by function: who eats, who breeds, who cleans, who shelters, and who keeps explosive population growth under control. If that function breaks, beauty can remain for a while like a mask over decline. The documentary should use this section to sharpen the viewer's eye. The sea is not a gallery. It is a living system where splendour can warn as much as it delights. To truly see the ocean is to ask not only what is beautiful, but whether that beauty belongs in balance or in takeover. Kelp forests belong to a different marine architecture than coral reefs, yet they serve a similarly city-like role. Growing by as much as 30 centimetres a day, giant kelp can turn open water into vertical forest. Light filters through it in moving green columns. Fish weave between fronds. Invertebrates attach, hide, and feed. Young animals find refuge in complexity. Predators hunt along edges and clearings. The underwater world becomes wooded. These forests matter not only as habitat, but as protection. They buffer coasts, absorb carbon, and create a form of marine shelter that changes wave energy and ecological possibility. They are reminders that the ocean builds not only with calcium carbonate or ice, but also with living vegetation capable of engineering space at remarkable speed. Placed beside coral reefs, kelp forests expand the documentary's sense of underwater civilization. One is tropical and mineral, bright and rigid, built from colonies of tiny builders. The other is temperate, flexible, and plant-like in visual character, a swaying architecture of living blades. Both prove the same principle. Marine life does not merely occupy space, it creates it. In a time of climate stress, kelp forests also reveal how quickly loss can travel through a coastal system. When habitat-forming life declines, Entire neighborhoods of the sea vanish with it. Shelter is lost. Juveniles lose cover. Predators shift. Carbon storage changes. Once again, the ocean shows that its beauty is inseparable from function. The ocean is often narrated through struggle, but it also contains forms of feeling that challenge our assumptions about what non-human life can be. Dolphins displaying what appears to be rescue behaviour, humpbacks carrying songs over immense distances, orcas hunting with family-level coordination, and the haunting story of the 52 Hertz whale all suggest that the sea is not emotionally empty. Whether every human interpretation is perfect matters less than the fact that these animals are plainly not mechanical. Their worlds contain recognition, social dependency, identity, grief-like behaviour, and separation. A mother orca carrying a dead calf, a dolphin guiding another being through danger, a whale singing into distance. Such images remain powerful because they break the illusion that the ocean is only a theatre of predation. The 52 Hertz whale in particular became unforgettable because it offered a sound picture of solitude. In the largest connected habitat on Earth, an animal could still be acoustically alone. That idea resonates far beyond marine science. It turns the ocean from pure scale into emotional scale. This section gives the documentary another necessary dimension. The sea does not only display the extremity of bodies, it reveals the extremity of connection and isolation too. That is one reason humans are drawn to it so deeply. In the ocean, greatness and loneliness can coexist without contradiction. One of the most important truths about the ocean is that no section of it exists alone. The phytoplankton at the bait of food webs support krill. Krill feed whales. Whales move nutrients. Nutrients strengthen productivity. Marine snow falls from upper layers to the depths. Deep systems depend on the rain of life from above. Turtles maintain seagrass. Seagrass stores carbon and stabilizes habitat. Coral builds cities that shelter quarter after quarter of marine biodiversity. The ocean, therefore, behaves less like a stack of isolated zones and more like a connected vertical civilization. Light influences darkness. Surface choices influence abyssal futures. Arctic ice shifts alter-species contact. Plastic dropped in one human moment can be mistaken for food by a turtle years later. Chemistry at hydrothermal vents rewrites the definition of possible life. Everything leans on something else. This is why reductionist thinking is so dangerous in marine policy and storytelling alike. To harm one layer is often to disturb another. To protect one species without protecting the habitat, food source, or migratory corridor that sustains it is to misunderstand the system entirely. The ocean lives through links. For a 40-minute documentary, this section serves as the intellectual hinge. It tells the viewer that all previous chapters, whales, dolphins, octopuses, turtles, reefs, the twilight zone, bioluminescence, vents, the Arctic, kelp, and deep threats are not separate wonders. They are one body of water expressing interconnected life in different forms. Protection becomes real only when it enters ordinary human behaviour. Grand targets such as 10% protected by 2026 and 30% by 2030 matter. But the moral force of conservation also depends on daily decisions. Reducing single-use plastic, support in protected marine areas, choosing sustainable fisheries, resisting destructive extraction, and recognizing that convenience on land often becomes suffering at sea. This should not be framed as guilt without agency. The ocean has already shown that recovery is possible when pressure is reduced. Humpback whales recovering off Brazil are evidence of that. Marine systems can return, but only if human activity stops pushing every ecological lever in the same destructive direction. There is also a profound ethical point here. The ocean is not valuable only because it serves human survival, though it certainly does, through oxygen, climate regulation, and food webs. It is valuable because it is one of the greatest independent achievements of life on Earth. Its lineages, songs, migrations, chemical worlds, and living architectures have worth beyond utility. The documentary should make that clear. Protection is not charity from humanity to the sea. It is responsibility exercised by one powerful species toward the larger living world that made its own existence possible. In the end, the ocean remains larger than any single story about it. It contains force and grace, terror and tenderness, solitude and collective intelligence, ancient continuity and rapid change. It is where the biggest animals in Earth's history still move through blue space, where light can be manufactured in darkness, where chemistry can replace sunlight, where old reptiles still return across impossible distances, and where entire cities are built by organisms small enough to fit on a fingertip. To stand before such a world and do nothing would be a failure not only of science or policy, but of imagination. We know enough now to understand what the sea gives, how much life it holds, and how quickly careless pressure can break relationships that took millions of years to form. Wonder without action is no longer enough. So the closing tone of this film should carry both reverence and urgency. The ocean is still alive with invention. It is still filled with songs, migrations, hidden lights, and giant shadows moving under the surface of Earth. But whether future generations inherit a living ocean or only a memory of its former fullness depends increasingly on what happens above the waves. That is the final truth. The ocean is not far away. It is under the climate, under the air, under the oxygen in our lungs, and under the future we are already making. To protect it is not to save something separate from ourselves. It is to remain worthy of the planet that made us. Open water may look empty to the human eye, yet it is one of the most memory-rich spaces in the sea. Whales cross it using routes held across generations. Dolphins recognize individuals through signature whistles that function like names. Sea turtles return across thousands of kilometers to natal coasts they have not seen since hatching. Even vertical migrations in the twilight zone repeat with the regularity of a hidden planetary heartbeat. Sound is central to that memory. Water carries low-frequency calls across astonishing distances. Blue whales can project vocalizations powerful enough to travel across huge portions of ocean under the right conditions. Humpbacks fill migration corridors with changing songs. Belugas turn ice-covered water into an echoing chamber of whistles and calls. The sea is therefore not merely a place animals pass through. It is a medium that stores relation through repetition. This section allows the documentary to bind movement, identity, and communication into one thread. Migration is not blind wandering. It is disciplined return. Sound is not just noise. It is orientation, belonging, and the maintenance of social space inside an environment too large for ordinary sight to organise. The ocean remains full of travellers, but they move through routes written in body and sound long before human charts arrived. To think of the ocean only as habitat is still not enough. It also shapes the breadth of the planet. The whale pump reminds us that giant animals are not passive inhabitants, but active circulators of fertility. Phytoplankton, fed in part by redistributed nutrients, contribute massively to oxygen generation. In many estimates, marine phytoplankton account for around half the oxygen humans breathe. The sea is therefore not outside the atmosphere in any practical sense. It helps make the atmosphere. This is one reason ocean damage can never be dismissed as a distant environmental issue. Plastic, warming, reef collapse, overfishing, and deep sea destruction are not isolated marine problems. They alter processes tied to carbon, climate, food security, and planetary metabolism. The ocean is one of the organs of Earth. For the documentary, this section should function like a final widening of the frame. Everything the viewer has seen, whales, reefs, vents, turtles, kelp, Arctic hunters, abyssal life, belongs not just to marine wonder, but to global stability. The ocean does not end at the shoreline. It rises into the air, enters the weather, enters the oxygen cycle, and returns to every human being in the ordinary act of breathing.